Hi, I'm Doug McKinlay and you're watching Adorama TV. We're here in County Waterford in Ireland, and today we're going to look at converting our color landscape pictures to black and white landscape pictures.
Adorama TV presents Stay Focused with Doug McKinlay.
So many photographers, especially beginners, think that getting a good black and white picture is as simple as setting the monochrome setting in your camera, if only it was that easy. There's lots of things to consider when looking to get a good black and white image, especially landscape pictures. From software for post-processing to your composition. And without understanding these elements, you'll end up with a flat, boring, gray picture. So we're on this beach here and it's got this great geology behind us, nice leading lines into the picture. So we're going to see if we can get a shot here. Now there's a few components to what makes a good black and white image. And one of the first things you have to think about is foreground interest. So you want something in the foreground to grab your viewer's eye. And these are fantastic, these rock escarpment, I suppose, because they've got these natural lines that are going to draw you into the picture. So we're going to look for one that's got a little bit of water in it, a little bit of lines. And I think this spot right here is really nice. There's a few things we have to keep in mind. Sky. You've got to look for some cloud. A plain blue sky will just turn out to be gray and dull. So you want a bit of cloud in there. And the light. Got to watch for the light. You want areas of shadow, dark shadow. You want areas of mid-tone, and you want areas that are bright. And last, of course, is the tone. So you've got to start thinking in tones rather than color. For instance, with green and red, easily distinguishable in a color photograph. In black and white, they're the same tones, they look exactly the same. So you want those tones to stand out against each other, to play off of each other. It takes a little bit of practice to start thinking in tones, but once you start doing it, it becomes pretty easy. And when focusing, remember to focus 1/3 into the scene. Not the background, not the immediate foreground, 1/3 into the scene. F11 should give you, I would say, pretty much a sharp focus from near foreground to infinity. Black and white pictures don't necessarily have to be big, giant landscapes. They can be detailed pictures, small parts. And we're on this amazing beach with all these stones and rocks and rotten wood. And it'd be a real shame not to take advantage of that to get some nice, clean, detailed pictures, like this one. Now, just a word about your file selection. Remember, always shoot in RAW. Don't shoot in JPEG, shoot in RAW. Because with RAW files, you've got much more flexibility in your digital darkroom to manipulate your pictures so you get the best black and white pictures possible. This is a great beach. Fantastic, a little bit of sheen of water on top of the sand, creating some really great reflections. I'm going to try and silhouette somebody who's walking on the beach, hopefully. I see a couple of potential targets up here. But first I'm going to change the lens. I'm going to go from this 24 wide angle to a 70 to 200 zoom, just to give me some more reach, a little more flexibility. So we'll do that right now. So I've got a subject about to enter my field of view. And I really like the way the sky is reflecting off of the wetness of the sand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to silhouette her out, but I'll get her reflection in that really thin sheen of water as well. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. So I've got the subject walking across my field of view, and she's reflected off the sand, the wet sand, and silhouetted at the same time. It's really nice. So black and white pictures don't have to be limited to landscapes. We've got these great old structures here, rundown buildings, make a fantastic subject for black and white pictures. Now, we talked earlier about not using the monochrome switch setting in the camera body. And the reason for that is it tends to make the pictures pretty flat. And ironically, to get a really good converted black and white picture, you need all those vibrant colors in there to give you those different tones. Then you can work with those once you get it into the computer. So we're going to set up and get a shot of this fantastic old house here. What a great spot. So I'm gonna just pop a wide angle lens on, my trusted old friend, a 24mm 1.4 lens. Set our aperture at f11, I think, and the sun is hitting this structure perfectly. It's a bit of a no-brainer shot, really. It should be really easy to get a good shot. The only slight problem is I got to make sure I don't get my shadow in the picture. Now the sky is really blue right now, and a blue sky in a monochrome shot tends to wash out as kind of gray. But by tweaking the contrast in the computer, you can make that blue sky look almost black. It's a pretty cool effect. So I've got my pictures now. The next step is getting them into the digital darkroom, aka the computer, and to start working on them. So what we're going to do now is convert a color image to black and white. I'm going to be using a plug-in for Photoshop called Silver Efex Pro 2. But first we'll start here in Lightroom. This one's Lightroom 5.7. Now what we need is a reasonably decent color image. Now it looks a bit flat because it's a raw file, so we're going to do some quick adjustments. First of all, I'm going to straighten out the horizon a little bit because it's annoying me. And with Lightroom we got some great tools in here, so we might bring the exposure down just a little bit, bump the contrast up a little bit, bring the shadows up a little smidge as well on these slider bars. We also have a built-in graduated neutral density filter which we're going to use. So I'm going to spread that out a little bit. I'm going to double-click effects, make sure there's nothing on there to annoy us. We're going to bring the exposure down a little bit and the contrast up, and some of the shadow, take a bit of the shadow. They're trying to take some of the shadow at the top of the rocks there. Add a little bit of clarity, give it a little bit of punch, and a slight smidge of saturation. And then we're going to close that and we'll go back into our basic sliders, and we'll just adjust again a little bit, a little more contrast, add a little clarity in the whole overall shot. We might just correct the lens, try to get rid of any of the chromatic problems that might occur. Detail, I'm not going to get too heavily into the whole sharpening of images, just a quick little bump up of detail, tiny bit of luminance, and we'll go back out to our full picture. Now we're going to export it out to Photoshop. So export, we will call it Coast 1 and hit return, and it will export into Photoshop. The one I'm using is CS4, and from there we're going to go into filter, down to the Nick collection, scroll over and down to Silver Efex Pro 2, which will bring up a whole series of dialog boxes. And the cool thing about Silver Efex, and with many of the other plugins, black and white plugins, they give you a whole series of presets. You can see them here on the left-hand side of the screen. And you can scroll down and just check each and every one if you want to see the effects, how it's going to work on the image. There's high structure harsh, high structure smooth, wet rocks, which I think we'll go with today. So again, got all these slider bars on the right. You can make your adjustments. You know, a little goes a long way. So just you can see the difference by sliding with the shadow slider. Go all the way over, and go out to the right, all the way to the left. It just gets a little bit darker. So let's just find a nice spot in the center so it gets some nice sort of texture on those rocks. What's great about this plugin is you got these control points, so you can drop them in wherever you want, and they will only affect the place, the area of the picture where the yellow kind of little toggle is. So with this one, we're going to bring our brightness down a little bit, bring that cloud down a little more moody, and then we can grab another one and drop it in over here. Just check that size, it's a little big, and bring that brightness down a little smidge. Got our filter sets here: blue, green, yellow, orange, and they will standby red, which I still like. So we'll just do that, take the strength down a little smidge. Now you've got this choice of different films here, analog film effects. Now that's something you may or may not want to use. I was a big fan of Kodak Tri-X-Pan during the day, but I think for the computer I quite like this Kodak Panatomic X. Toning, there's a whole variety of tones. I'm a little partial to selenium, and I might take the strength down a little smidge. You can play around the paper toning, the paper hue, the balance, etc. If you want to put a vignette on it, if you go to the right, it's going to be a white vignette or brighten it up. Go to the left, it's going to be a darker one, more traditional. And also you can put a border around your image if you like, or leave it completely natural. Let's pick that one. It's a bit big, so we're going to drop it down a little bit, bring it out to the edges a little more, and we'll spread it out a little bit, and then we'll make it a bit rough. Okay, once you've got something that you more or less like, this is, like I said, this is sort of a rough and quick sort of demonstration. Then just hit OK, and then it will work with Photoshop to convert this image into a black and white image. Saving image, and there we go. So that is a rough conversion using Silver Efex Pro 2 plugin for Photoshop. It could also be used in Lightroom if you like to. But please, when you're doing this yourself, take your time with it. So I've got a couple of personal favorites in my black and white catalog. One is of Bryce Canyon in Utah in the United States. The reason why I like it, it was an interesting picture because the forestry service there inadvertently started a forest fire. So, and I knew that I was there in the afternoon, and I knew by the morning the smoke would settle into the valley with all the night air. And sure enough, the next morning when I got there about 5 o'clock in the morning, all that smoke and mist had sort of settled in between all the rock crevices, and that the colors and tones of Bryce Canyon is phenomenal. So that's one of my favorites. The other one is, again, it's in the States, and it's in Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas. It's a place called Red Rock Canyon, I think. And there was this gathering storm over top of the mountains, and the sky was dark, and the clouds were really like ready to just burst open. And I just happened to be there at the right time, and I got this really fantastic picture. So I think those are my two favorite black and white pictures. Well, that's it for today. I'm Doug McKinlay for Adorama TV. Don't forget to subscribe to Adorama TV for more great videos. And tell us what you think. You can like, comment, or share in this video. And please stop by the Adorama Learning Center for more great tips.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.